The afternoon sun filtered through the wide glass windows of Caldwell Fine Arts Gallery, illuminating the pristine white walls adorned with paintings worth thousands, even millions of dollars. Each piece was carefully curated, exuding an air of exclusivity. Marcus Daniels paused at the entrance, his palms damp as he clutched a portfolio of his best work. His heart thudded in his chest, a mix of nervous energy and hopeful anticipation. "This is it," he muttered to himself. "They'll see my work, and maybe, just maybe, they'll give me a chance." Marcus had poured his soul into his art. Every brushstroke told a story, each color a reflection of his struggles, dreams, and the vibrant culture that shaped him. He had spent years perfecting his craft, often staying up late into the night in his small studio, surrounded by canvases and empty coffee cups. His dream was simple: to have his work displayed in a gallery where it could inspire and connect with others. Today, he hoped, was the day that dream would begin to come true. The bell above the door jingled as Marcus stepped inside. The cool air of the gallery greeted him, along with the faint hum of classical music playing in the background. The space was immaculate, almost intimidating in its perfection. Sculptures and paintings were arranged with meticulous care, each piece bathed in just the right amount of light to highlight its features. Wealthy patrons milled about, their voices low and refined as they discussed the latest exhibitions. Behind the counter stood Mr. Caldwell, the gallery's owner. He was a tall, thin man in a tailored gray suit, his silver hair combed back neatly. His sharp features gave him an air of authority, but his expression carried a permanent hint of disdain, as if the world and everyone in it were beneath him. Marcus approached cautiously, his portfolio clutched tightly against his chest. "Excuse me, Mr. Caldwell," he began, his voice steady, despite the nerves bubbling inside him. Caldwell looked up from a leather-bound ledger, his pale blue eyes flicking briefly over Marcus before returning to the book. "Yes? Can I help you?" he asked, his tone clipped and impatient. I'm an artist," Marcus said, swallowing the lump in his throat. He opened his portfolio, revealing a collection of vibrant, meticulously detailed pieces. "I was hoping you could take a look at my work. I think it would be a good fit for your gallery." Caldwell glanced at the open portfolio, but instead of examining the art, his gaze drifted back to Marcus. He raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a faint smirk. "An artist, are you?" he said, his voice laced with condescension. "And you think your work belongs here?" Marcus nodded, trying to ignore the growing discomfort in his chest. "Yes, sir. I believe my art tells a unique story, and I think it could resonate with people. If you could just take a moment to—" "Let me stop you right there," Caldwell interrupted, raising a hand. He leaned back against the counter, crossing his arms as he looked Marcus up and down. "We have very high standards here at Caldwell Fine Arts. Our clientele expects sophistication, refinement, pieces that evoke a certain prestige. My work is sophisticated," Marcus said, his voice firmer now. "It's honest. It tells the story of resilience, of overcoming challenges." "Urban art?" Caldwell cut in, his smirk widening into a sneer. "I'm afraid that's not what we're looking for. Our clients prefer pieces that match their decor, not whatever it is you're offering." Marcus felt a wave of heat rise to his face. "You haven't even looked at my work," he pointed out, his voice tinged with frustration. "How can you dismiss it without even giving it a chance?" Caldwell sighed dramatically, as if the conversation were a waste of his valuable time. "Let me be clear, young man," he said, his tone growing colder. "This gallery represents the best of the best. Artists who have studied at prestigious institutions, whose names carry weight in the art world. It's not a place for amateurs or, how should I put this, aspiring hobbyists." The words hit Marcus like a slap. He closed his portfolio slowly, his hands trembling as he fought to maintain his composure. "Thank you for your time," he said quietly, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. Caldwell nodded dismissively, already turning back to his ledger. "Try the street fairs," he said over his shoulder. "They might be more your level." As Marcus stepped outside, the cheerful jingle of the doorbell felt like a cruel mockery. The bustling sounds of the city greeted him, but they did little to drown out the echo of Caldwell's words in his mind. He stood on the sidewalk, clutching his portfolio like a lifeline, his vision blurring as tears threatened to spill. Humiliation burned in his chest, but beneath it, something else began to stir: determination. Caldwell might have dismissed him, but he wouldn't let this moment define him. He had faced rejection before, and he had always found a way to rise above it. This was no different. "You'll see my work someday," Marcus whispered to himself, his voice steady despite the ache in his heart. "And when you do, you'll regret this." With a deep breath, he straightened his shoulders and walked away from the gallery. The sun was setting, painting the city in shades of gold and orange, a reminder that even the darkest moments could be touched by light. Marcus didn't know how, but he would find a way to prove his worth, not just to Caldwell, but to the entire art world. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Marcus sat in his cramped studio, staring at the painting before him. It was finished, yet it felt like an open wound. The piece, titled "Rising from Ashes," depicted a lone figure standing amidst a chaotic swirl of flames and shadows, reaching for a distant light. The emotions it conveyed, pain, resilience, and unyielding hope, mirrored everything Marcus had felt in the days since his humiliating encounter at Caldwell Fine Arts Gallery. He hadn't spoken much about it to anyone, but his best friend, Lisa, had noticed his mood. Lisa had been his rock since college, a constant source of encouragement and support. She was the first to believe in his talent, long before anyone else. "You can't let that pompous jerk get to you," Lisa said one evening as they sat in his studio. She leaned against the cluttered work table, holding a steaming cup of tea. "Caldwell might think he's the gatekeeper of the art world, but he's not the only way in." Marcus sighed, running a hand over his face. "I know, but it's hard not to feel defeated. I've spent years trying to get noticed, and he didn't even give me a chance." Lisa's eyes sparkled with determination. "Then stop waiting for someone to give you a chance. Make them notice you." She gestured toward his phone. "Post your work online. Share it with the world. You never know who might see it." Marcus hesitated. "Social media?" "I don't know, Lisa. It feels impersonal." "It's not about the platform," she said firmly. "It's about getting your voice out there. Your art tells powerful stories, Marcus. People need to see it. Trust me on this." That night, after much convincing, Marcus created an account on a popular art-sharing platform. He uploaded a few of his best pieces, including "Rising from Ashes," and wrote a heartfelt caption: "Art is the voice of the unheard. This is my story. Thank you for taking the time to see it." For the first few days, nothing happened. The posts received a handful of likes and comments, mostly from friends and acquaintances. Marcus tried not to be discouraged, reminding himself that building an audience took time. But everything changed on the fifth day. Unbeknownst to Marcus, one of his followers had shared his post with a renowned art critic, Patricia Raines. Patricia was known for her sharp eye and ability to spot raw talent. She had built a reputation for discovering artists before they hit the mainstream, and her endorsement carried immense weight. When Patricia stumbled across Marcus's painting, she was captivated. She shared it on her account, writing, "This is one of the most powerful pieces I've seen in years. It speaks to the human condition in a way that few artists can achieve. A masterpiece of modern emotion." Her post went viral. Within hours, Marcus's notifications exploded. Likes, comments, and shares flooded in from people all over the world. Art enthusiasts, collectors, and even other artists began praising his work. Messages poured into his inbox, some from admirers thanking him for his art, and others from buyers eager to purchase his pieces. Lisa called him the moment she saw Patricia's post. "Marcus, have you seen this? You're blowing up." I don't know what to say," Marcus stammered, staring at his phone in disbelief as the numbers climbed. His follower count had gone from a few dozen to tens of thousands in a single day. "Say thank you," Lisa teased. "And get ready, because your life is about to change." She wasn't wrong. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's paintings became highly sought after. Collectors from around the world were bidding thousands of dollars for his pieces, and offers came pouring in faster than he could respond. One buyer even offered $200,000 for Rising from Ashes, calling it a once-in-a-lifetime masterpiece. Despite the sudden influx of wealth, Marcus remained grounded. He didn't flaunt his success or indulge in extravagance. Instead, he used the money to improve his studio, buy better supplies, and support his mother, who had always believed in his dream. "Why aren't you shouting this from the rooftops?" Lisa asked one evening as they celebrated his latest sale with takeout in his studio. "You're a star now." Marcus shook his head, smiling. "I don't want to lose sight of why I started this. It's not about the fame or the money. It's about the art. I want it to speak for itself." But Marcus had another reason for keeping a low profile. He wasn't done proving himself. While the world celebrated his talent, he couldn't forget the sting of Mr. Caldwell's dismissive words. In the back of his mind, he carried the memory of that rejection like a spark, fueling his determination. As Marcus scrolled through his emails that night, one stood out. It was from an international collector offering a staggering $1.5 million for a custom commission. Marcus stared at the screen, his mind racing. This was it, the moment he realized he had not only arrived but had the power to rewrite his narrative. He accepted the commission, but instead of celebrating, he began to plan. It wasn't enough to succeed, he wanted to use his success to make a statement. And in his mind, he knew exactly how to do it. The idea came to Marcus late one evening as he stared at his finished commission, a sprawling mural titled "The Mask of Pride." The painting, a haunting exploration of arrogance and prejudice, had been inspired by his encounter with Mr. Caldwell. It was both a triumph and a reckoning, a reminder of how far he had come and the barriers he had broken to get there. As he admired the piece, a bold thought took root in his mind. Caldwell Fine Arts Gallery had dismissed him, but now he had the means to turn the tables. It wasn't enough to prove Caldwell wrong. Marcus wanted to create an opportunity for artists like himself who had been overlooked, dismissed, or belittled. He wanted to make a statement not just to Caldwell, but to the entire art world. That's when he began to devise his plan. Marcus reached out to an old acquaintance, Philip Stanton, a shrewd investment advisor who specialized in the art world. Marcus trusted Philip to handle the delicate task of acquiring shares in Caldwell Fine Arts without drawing attention to himself. "Let me get this straight," Philip said during their meeting at a high-end cafe. "You want to buy into Caldwell Fine Arts anonymously?" Marcus nodded, sipping his coffee. "That's right. I don't want him to know it's me, not yet. I just need enough leverage to make sure he can't stop what I'm planning." Philip leaned back, intrigued. "This isn't about making a profit, is it?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "It's about making a point." Philip chuckled, impressed by Marcus's resolve. "All right, I'll make it happen. But you'll need patience. Acquiring a significant stake in a gallery like Caldwell's won't happen overnight." "I've waited this long," Marcus replied. "I can wait a little longer." Over the next several months, Marcus quietly built his stake in Caldwell Fine Arts. Using his newfound wealth, he purchased shares through shell companies and anonymous trusts. Philip ensured that everything was aboveboard but discreet, shielding Marcus's identity at every turn. While the acquisition process was underway, Marcus threw himself into his art. He completed several new pieces, each one more ambitious and provocative than the last. Critics hailed his work as groundbreaking, and collectors eagerly competed to acquire it. Marcus's reputation grew, and with it, his influence. Despite his rising fame, Marcus remained elusive. He rarely made public appearances, preferring to let his art speak for itself. His reclusiveness only added to his mystique, fueling speculation about his identity. Few people knew the face behind the art, and Marcus intended to keep it that way, for now. 6 months later, Philip called with the news Marcus had been waiting for. "It's done," Philip said. "You're now the majority shareholder in Caldwell Fine Arts." Marcus leaned back in his chair, a triumphant smile spreading across his face. "Perfect. Now for the next step." He outlined his plan to Philip, who listened with growing admiration. Marcus intended to stage an exhibition at Caldwell Fine Arts, featuring his own work under a pseudonym. The pieces would be submitted anonymously, ensuring that Caldwell would have no idea who the artist was until the unveiling. "Are you sure he'll accept the pieces?" Philip asked. Marcus smirked. "He won't have a choice. My work is in demand, and I've already lined up collectors who are eager to see it. If Caldwell wants to maintain his gallery's prestige, he'll have to showcase it." Over the next few weeks, Marcus worked tirelessly to prepare for the exhibition. He selected 10 of his best pieces, each one a reflection of his journey and the obstacles he had overcome. Each painting carried a subtle but deliberate message about resilience, prejudice, and the transformative power of art. Once the collection was ready, Marcus submitted it to Caldwell Fine Arts under the pseudonym A.D. Elysian. The name was a nod to his late father, Arthur Daniels, and the idea of an artistic utopia, a world where talent, not prejudice, determined success. True to form, Caldwell initially hesitated. "I don't recognize this artist," he said during a staff meeting. "We have a reputation to uphold. I'm not sure we should risk it." But his assistant, a young and enthusiastic curator named Grace, pushed back. "The work is incredible," she argued. "And the buzz surrounding A.D. Elysian is already huge. If we don't host this exhibition, another gallery will, and we'll look like fools for passing it up." Reluctantly, Caldwell agreed. As the exhibition approached, Marcus carefully orchestrated every detail. He worked with Grace, who was unaware of his true identity, to ensure the event would be a success. Invitations were sent to prominent collectors, critics, and art enthusiasts, all eager to see the debut of the mysterious A.D. Elysian. Marcus also reached out to Lisa, sharing his plan. She was thrilled and insisted on being there for the big reveal. "I wouldn't miss this for the world," she said. On the night of the exhibition, the gallery was packed. Guests mingled, sipping champagne as they admired the pieces. Each painting was met with awe and admiration, the crowd buzzing with praise for A.D. Elysian's talent. Caldwell, oblivious to the true identity of the artist, basked in the success of the event. "A wise decision," he said smugly to Grace. "I told you this would be a triumph." Grace resisted the urge to roll her eyes, but smiled politely. Meanwhile, Marcus stood in the corner, watching it all unfold. He was dressed sharply in a tailored suit, blending in with the crowd. As he listened to the glowing remarks about his work, a sense of satisfaction filled him. Everything was going according to plan. The time for the reveal was approaching, and Marcus could feel the anticipation building. Tonight, the world would see him, not just as an artist, but as a force to be reckoned with. The night of the exhibition had arrived, and Caldwell Fine Arts Gallery was alive with energy. The grand hall buzzed with conversation as patrons and collectors marveled at the pieces on display. Every wall of the gallery seemed to pulsate with the power of A.D. Elysian's work, each painting a testament to resilience, hope, and the raw beauty of human struggle. Marcus Daniels stood near the entrance, his heart pounding as he watched the crowd. Dressed in a sharp, tailored black suit with a crisp white shirt and a sleek tie, he looked every bit the part of a successful artist. Yet, he remained unnoticed, blending seamlessly into the crowd. It was deliberate. Tonight wasn't about his appearance, it was about his art. As he made his way through the gallery, Marcus listened to snippets of conversation. "This is extraordinary," one collector whispered, standing before rising from ashes. "It's as if the artist captured the very essence of perseverance." "I've never seen anything like this," another said, pointing to the mask of pride. "The depth, the emotion, it's absolutely breathtaking." Marcus smiled to himself, the praise reaffirming that his work had found its audience. For years, he had doubted if his voice could ever break through the noise of the art world. Now, it was undeniable. At the center of the gallery, a podium had been set up for the evening's announcements. Mr. Caldwell stood nearby, basking in the success of the event. His tailored gray suit and polished demeanor exuded confidence, but Marcus could see the faint glimmer of relief in his eyes. This exhibition had saved the gallery from months of dwindling attention. Caldwell's reputation, like the gallery's, was riding on the mysterious AD Elysian. As the clock struck 8, Caldwell tapped a glass with a fork, drawing the room's attention. The murmurs quieted, and all eyes turned toward the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caldwell began, his voice smooth and practiced, "thank you for joining us tonight for the debut of the extraordinary AD Elysian. This evening is a celebration of art that transcends boundaries and speaks to the soul." The crowd erupted into applause, and Caldwell beamed, raising his hands for silence. "We are honored to host such a remarkable collection. These works remind us of the transformative power of art and the boundless creativity of the human spirit." Marcus stepped forward, his heart pounding. This was his moment. "Excuse me, Mr. Caldwell," Marcus said, his voice calm but commanding. The crowd turned to look at him, curiosity flickering in their eyes. Caldwell furrowed his brow, visibly annoyed at the interruption. "Yes? Can I help you?" Marcus smiled, his confidence unwavering. "Actually, I'm here to help you. You see, I'm AD Elysian." The room fell silent. A wave of disbelief rippled through the crowd as people exchanged stunned glances. Caldwell's expression froze, his mouth slightly agape. "I'm sorry," Caldwell stammered, trying to recover. "You're AD Elysian?" "That's correct," Marcus said, stepping onto the podium. "And there's one more thing. I'm also the majority owner of this gallery." A collective gasp swept through the room, followed by an eruption of murmurs. Marcus let the moment settle before continuing. "Months ago, I walked into this gallery with my work," Marcus said, his voice steady but charged with emotion. "I was dismissed without so much as a glance, because of assumptions about who I am and what I represent. That rejection didn't just motivate me, it reminded me of the barriers so many artists face." Caldwell's face turned pale, the weight of Marcus's words landing heavily. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. "But tonight isn't about me," Marcus continued, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "It's about the power of art to connect us, to challenge us, and to change us. It's about creating a space where every artist, regardless of background, has a chance to be seen." The room erupted into applause, the sound filling every corner of the gallery. Marcus stood tall, his heart swelling with pride as the crowd cheered his words. Caldwell, clearly rattled, stepped forward. "Mr. Daniels," he began, his tone unusually deferential, I had no idea. If I had known." "You didn't know because you didn't take the time to look," Marcus said, cutting him off. His voice wasn't angry, but it carried the weight of truth. "You saw me, and you made a judgment. That's the problem with spaces like this, they shut people out before they ever have a chance." Caldwell's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but he had no rebuttal. The audience watched intently, their expressions a mix of awe and respect for Marcus. "I'm not here to dwell on the past," Marcus said, turning back to the crowd. "I'm here to celebrate what's possible. And I promise you, this gallery will no longer be a gatekeeper, it will be a gateway." The applause was deafening. Collectors, critics, and fellow artists surged forward to shake Marcus's hand, offering congratulations and expressing their admiration for his work and his courage. Lisa appeared at his side, her face glowing with pride. "You did it," she whispered, hugging him tightly. "You really did it." As the evening continued, Marcus became the center of attention. Yet, he remained humble, deflecting praise back to the art and the people who had supported him. For every person who congratulated him, he shared his vision for the gallery, a place where talent, not privilege, would be the deciding factor. Caldwell, meanwhile, faded into the background, his earlier arrogance replaced by a humbled silence. He stayed for the rest of the event but avoided eye contact with Marcus. It was clear that his influence over the gallery was no longer what it once was. By the end of the night, Marcus stood alone in the gallery, looking at his paintings one last time before they were shipped off to their new owners. A deep sense of fulfillment washed over him. He had not only proven his worth, but had also taken a stand for something larger than himself. This was just the beginning. The weeks following the exhibition were a whirlwind of excitement and change. Marcus Daniels's name was now a fixture in the art world, and his work was celebrated not just for its beauty but for the powerful stories it told. However, for Marcus, the success wasn't just about the accolades, it was about what came next. He had spent years feeling invisible, dismissed by an industry that claimed to celebrate creativity but often excluded voices like his. Now that he had a platform, he was determined to use it to uplift others. One bright morning, Marcus stood in the grand hall of Caldwell Fine Arts Gallery, now his gallery in both name and purpose. The walls were bare, the room echoing with the footsteps of the staff preparing for the major announcement he had planned. Lisa stood by his side, reviewing the speech he had written. "You sure you want to go this big?" she asked, grinning as she flipped through the pages. "Not that I'm doubting you, it's just, this is huge." Marcus smiled. "I've spent my whole life waiting for opportunities that never came. It's time to create them, for everyone." Lisa nodded, her eyes glistening with pride. "Then let's do this." By noon, the gallery was packed with journalists, artists, and collectors. Cameras flashed as Marcus stepped onto the small stage set up at the center of the hall. The room fell silent, all eyes on him. "Thank you all for coming," Marcus began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "For many years, this gallery has been a symbol of exclusivity. It was a place that celebrated art, yes, but only from those deemed acceptable by a narrow definition of worth. I know this because I was once turned away from this very space." A murmur rippled through the crowd as Marcus continued. "But tonight, I'm here to announce a new chapter. Caldwell Fine Arts Gallery is no more. From this day forward, this space will be known as the Elysian Collective, a gallery dedicated to showcasing the work of underrepresented and marginalized artists." The room erupted in applause, but Marcus raised a hand to quiet it. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about the countless artists out there whose voices have been ignored, artists who have been told they don't belong because of where they come from, what they look like, or the stories they choose to tell. This gallery will be their home." Over the next several weeks, Marcus worked tirelessly to bring his vision to life. The gallery underwent a complete transformation. The once stark, minimalist design was replaced with vibrant murals and warm, inviting spaces that reflected the diversity of the artists it now represented. Marcus personally reached out to emerging artists from all over the world, inviting them to submit their work. One of the first artists Marcus brought on board was a young woman named Sofia Torres, whose surrealist paintings had been rejected by every gallery she'd approached. When Marcus called her to offer a spot in the gallery's inaugural exhibition, she broke down in tears. "I thought no one would ever see my work," Sofia said when they met at the gallery. "Thank you for giving me this chance." "It's not a chance," Marcus replied, smiling. "It's your moment. You earned it." Stories like Sofia's became the heartbeat of the Elysian Collective. Each artist brought a unique perspective, their work reflecting a rich tapestry of experiences that had long been missing from the mainstream art world. Meanwhile, Mr. Caldwell was left to grapple with his diminished role. Though he still held a minority stake in the gallery, his influence had all but disappeared. He spent his days watching the transformation from the sidelines, his once unshakable confidence replaced by quiet introspection. One day, Caldwell approached Marcus as he was overseeing the installation of a new exhibit. He hesitated before speaking, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "Marcus," Caldwell began, "I wanted to apologize for how I treated you, and for what this gallery stood for under my leadership. I was wrong." Marcus paused, studying Caldwell's face. There was no hint of arrogance, only regret. "I appreciate that," Marcus said after a moment. "But words aren't enough. If you truly want to make amends, you'll have to show it through your actions." Caldwell nodded, seeming to understand. I'll do whatever I can to support your vision. The gallery's reopening as the Elysian Collective was a monumental event. Artists from all walks of life filled the space, their work displayed with the care and respect it deserved. Critics hailed the gallery as a groundbreaking institution, and the public flocked to see the art that was changing the narrative of the industry. Marcus stood at the center of it all, humbled but proud. For him, the greatest reward wasn't the praise or the profits, it was the knowledge that he was making a difference. He had turned his pain into purpose, creating a legacy that would outlast him. One evening, as Marcus walked through the gallery after closing, he stopped in front of Rising from Ashes, the painting that had marked the turning point in his journey. He thought about the countless artists who would walk through these doors, their dreams no longer stifled by prejudice or rejection. This is just the beginning, he whispered to himself. And it was. Marcus Daniels had not only transformed a gallery but had also ignited a movement, proving that talent and perseverance could overcome even the deepest barriers. The Elysian Collective became a beacon of hope, a testament to what could be achieved when one refused to give up and refused to be silent.